Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Ingerman, and welcome to the Shamans Cave.
And I'm Renee Barabo, and I hope your New Year's is off to an amazing start.
Yeah, so we've been trying to really help you start this new year in a really good way. And we have another good topic that is really important for us to look at because, my God, it is so unbelievably big in the spiritual community. And it always has been. It always has been. But it's something, this is the time for us to break behaviors that aren't working. And we live in a society that tends to teach us that giving is better than receiving. And in the spiritual community, we've taken that to the most exponential place that we possibly can. I actually, the other day, just to give you an example, but I could actually write a 2,000 page book on this topic. The other day I told somebody that I couldn't do a radio interview because I wasn't feeling that well. And he said, I'm meeting with a circle tonight and we'll send you healing energy. And I said, please don't send me please. Don't send me
Keep healing energy to yourself.
He said, I don't care. It's already done. And this is what happens constantly in the spiritual community is I'm going to heal you whether you want to be healed or not. The hardest topic that I have to speak about in all of my workshops, because I teach people how to do remote healing work, is that you must have permission of the client beforehand. And those discussions of my students fighting with me for 40 years goes on for about an hour before I have to say, it's done. You must have permission. People feel that they want to heal people whether they want it or not, because it's for their best good.
The one that, well, I asked your higher self, and I'm thinking like, hello, my higher self's not, sweeping the kitchen floor. That one always was one that really bothered me. I asked your higher self.
Well, I actually talk about this in my workshops. I'm brutal. I actually say, if you say the words higher self gave permission to me or in this workshop, that is exactly like taking your nails and running them across a blackboard. That's what it does to me. And I will go after you. I'm known to be a real loving mother in my workshops. I give and give and give. This is why we're talking about this topic, because I'm looking at it in me right now. And what I say to people is if the higher self wants the healing so much, get the person to open up their mouth and ask for healing.
And one of the things with Sandra and I think the reason that we've been so good in our communication is when we talk, and so we know what's going on in each other's lives, and yet we don't barge over, hey, let me just send you over some, I think I know what's better for you than you know what's for you. And we wait until we're invited in to say, would you like some help with that? And leave space for somebody to say no. I was involved with people being in the addiction field for a long time who my idea of them getting help had everything to do with me and nothing about them, because there was a place in me that there was a judgment that I knew what was best for that person's soul, and that living this sober life was a better way to live. like there's judgments in it gets really confusing, but I don't know what's better for somebody else. I don't know what they signed up for, what the lessons that they have to overcome in this particular lifetime. And we used to call it in AA denying people the dignity of their bottom.
Yeah, that's beautiful. My big lesson, it was such a big lesson for me, came back in the late 1980s. My best friend got AIDS, and I was always trying to do healings for him. And one day he said to me, I didn't do any because he didn't give me permission. And one day he said to me, he said, Sandy, this is my illness. I don't want healing. This is my illness. This is my time. I don't want anybody coming in and healing me. This was my best friend. I mean, I adored this man. And at that point, I was young. It was only so I thought, I can heal you. I thought, I didn't have all the years I have now to understand how complex illness can be. But he wanted his journey. And we're all on a journey. Everything that happens to us is our journey. It's part of our journey. And part of our journey is getting help, and part of our journey is working through things. And how do we get others to just hold space for us and back off without actually coming into our field of energy, but lighting a candle for us and just holding space for us?
I just have to piggyback on that. Your friend with the AIDS. I do a conference called the Finding Freedom Symposium, which is in a couple weeks from now. And there's a new group started for longtime survivors of AIDS. And this is going to really bend your mind a little bit. But there's a lot of people who have survived AIDS for a couple of decades now, and who are having guilt. They're having shame. They're having loneliness, that they survived this. And it's kind of a real twist around on that whole idea of how much now we're going to feel bad that we didn't die too, and it was just so intertwined with the toxic shame people had around being gay, or that around their sexual abuse, and how that they didn't think they deserved healing. Now that's a different story. If somebody doesn't think they deserve the healing, then there's things like motivational interviewing and some other things that I find you can get people to maybe accept it. I get into this all the time with my really close friend, is that whenever there's something wrong with me, you can't hold my discomfort. You're always trying to fix it.
Right. Yeah.
And that's back to me again. I'm trying to I don't want you to be sad. I want to fix it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My mother, when she was 98, said something really interesting to me, because I moved my parents. I share this a lot. I took care of my parents the last years of their life. And I knew how much they suffered in their life. I knew how much they suffered. And I wanted their last days to be, I wanted them to feel 1,000% safe, and that they didn't have to fight for their dignity, or fight because somebody was abusing them in the assisted living place that I had them in. So I went every single day, and I hired people to make sure, because the stories of what happens to people, and I didn't want that for my parents. And one day, I coddled my parents like a mother who's just mothering way too much. Somebody needs to get the mother separated from their kids. And my mother said to me, we really appreciate everything that you're doing for us, but, it would have been good for us to make some mistakes, and it would have been good for us to have to stand up for ourselves a little bit. My 98 mother having to tell this to me.
I do that now, like in retrospect, in the company I work for, it's like that I'm the like I'm the wise elder here. And so, watching people like trip over themselves or make mistakes and stuff is I'm really I'm holding that stand. Okay. Well, if you want to order all of these fountains that people are going to have to hand fill, what do I care? Like, is it going to change my day if that's your learning experience? So again, that goes back to that, denying people the dignity of learning. When we, think like a mother trying to keep their kids from heartbreak, you can't. You just can't. You can't keep people from the lessons that they're choosing to learn. And I see a lot like people giving and giving and giving, but what they don't necessarily see is that they're giving to get. And I always can tell when I'm giving to get, when I get a big fat resentment about writing that check or, donating to that cause or going to pick up somebody, that I didn't want to do. I don't really have that as much anymore, but I see it all the time. Like, I'm giving to get a certain outcome in the world, or like if I put my efforts here, then I should get this. And that kind of giving will suck you dry faster than, a straw in a can of soda.
Absolutely. I think every healer, every teacher out there can echo what the brilliance that Renee just shared with us. And the bottom line is we're always projecting our needs onto other people. And so we see them as what we really need. So we start giving it to them, and maybe their lesson is different. And I found in my own journey of healing that I got thrown off of my path so many times, because people came in to help. And what happened to me was I lost my own spiritual guidance. There were so many people talking to me about what I should do that I couldn't hear my own body. And when I finally asked people to stop communicating with me, period, all of a sudden I could hear my body saying, I want this, I want that. Would you please stop doing this? Would you please add a little bit more of that? But people were giving help, and I didn't want it. So for me, I'm sure Renee has things that she does. For me, what I've been trying to teach ever since I started teaching shamanism is that one of the most healing things that you can do for another individual is to just hold space. Mm-hmm. And that means being silent in your house, just saying a prayer that I love this person and I wish them the best. And I'm holding space for them during their healing process and lighting a candle. We don't understand the power of that actually has more power than somebody forcing a healing method on somebody who doesn't want it. And what I found, the challenge of that is I found I can't teach people how to hold space. Mm-hmm. So this is something I'm going to ask you to reflect on in the new year of how you can be better space holders for yourself, for your friends, for your family, for your community, and for the world at large.
That's a good one. And I could add to that to say that it's really, really uncomfortable when you sit there, and it gets a little easier as you practice more, but it's really, think about if you've lost somebody that they died, that was really close to you, and how uncomfortable that is. And you can't change it. You can't do anything. And you're just in that grief space. Well, I find holding space when somebody else is suffering to be that same kind of like, I can't fix this. I can't do anything about it. And usually when I get like that, what I usually do is, or what I have done in the past, because we did this great meditation for the New Year's that we cleared out the future so we don't have to do that anymore. So go back and listen to it if you haven't. Oh yeah, and subscribe to us if you're here. But what I do is like I can just stay there in my own discomfort and look at, why am I so uncomfortable for this other person? And when I do that, then it shifts to me where I start to have a little more compassion for the experience that they're having. And when I can go to the place of compassion for the experience they're having, I come from a place of true humility. And then I can be really present when somebody is ready to share, or they are ready to move from that place, because that other place is really, for me, really uncomfortable to sit in, especially as a healer who's healed so much in my own life, so that I know it's possible. Because you know that it's possible to shift, and yet some people don't want to.
Yeah, and one of the things the Spirit said to me, again, back in the 1980s, my biggest lessons, of course, came when I first started teaching, because I was starting out. And, the Spirit said to me about holding space, but they also shared with me that everybody has the right to make a choice in their life. Everybody has a right to make a choice. And I have no right to interfere with other people's choices because of my own beliefs and my own feeling. And that's really important for us. That's another thing for us to learn how to hold, that everybody has the right to make choices for themselves. If they're not hurting somebody else and this is their life journey, let them have their life journey. And if they're making a mistake, that mistake is part of their life's journey, and it's actually part of the gift of their life's journey.
That's true. And for me, I've had to look for the result of, like, when I'm not doing that. Like, if I can't fix something, then I might start a fight. So what do you do if you can't fix something? Like, the next thing you know, you're like throwing in the kitchen sink into how they're not being fixed, how it's hurt you, and blah, 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 blah. And don't they know that if they die, you're going to be alone and you're going to have to figure out how to pay the bills? See, it all, when there's the fight and when there's the reasoning and the justification, it always comes back to, it would make my life so much more comfortable if you would only heal. And I call that another other. If you would do that, I'd be okay. And I lived like that for a long, long time but then I learned that I had to turn that arrow back on myself and see that I could be okay no matter what you do.
Yeah. And I think what Renee is saying is really important to us, because what happens is that if we don't turn that arrow back on ourselves and start looking, the universe brings in a lesson for us to get it, so that we get it ourselves. So, like, well, I didn't listen to Sandra and Renee, and I didn't listen to the other 10 people who told me the same thing. And then all of a sudden, the universe takes you down to your knees and wears you down to a nub. And it's, oh, that's what they were talking about. So we always have to decide how much pain and suffering we need before we change our behaviors, because unfortunately, in human consciousness, in the years that we're living in, it's pain and suffering that gets us to change. We don't change when things are going well. It's just not part of human behavior.
And in our next show, we're going to really talk about, so you did what you wanted, you got for yourself, and then you kind of created some contract around it. And just so you can think about it for a minute. So next week, when we come to that show about contracts and we're going to do some removal around it, one time I thought that I was I was really young too, Sandra. So I thought that I was the better partner for somebody, right? So I did a little candle magic. I lit my candle, I went and tossed it in the river, and boom, it hit me in the face so fast. And I got a glimpse of, okay, you want to bring this person in your life? This is what it's going to look like. Everyone had to sell their houses. It was like, it was a really kind of a tragic contract. And so sometimes if we can't, we have to put the flashlight onto ourselves really good in order to see why it is that you even want to help somebody. Now, if they're coming, it's a contract, they're going to, give you an I need exchange, albeit you're there to be of total service to those people. But if they don't ask, don't do it.
Yeah, and that's really the bottom line. So, people get a little bit confused, especially when they start out. How do you ask? What are ways that you can ask that don't sound too weird? And, you could do things like saying, wow, I see, I hear what you're saying. Is it okay if I keep you in my prayers? I took a workshop. I happened to be studying a particular system where I can send you some nice loving energy that might help with your situation. Are you open to receive something like that? What you want to know is that the person wants help. You don't have to go through, this is what I'm going to do. This is every step of what I'm going to do. Basically, you just want to know if the person wants help. And in shamanism, we can access that information from a person who's unconscious or in a coma, or a very young child who can't speak, or somebody in a mental institution who doesn't have enough of an ego to be able to say, I need some help. We do a journey in the middle world and we talk to their spirit. I would go in the middle world and introduce myself. So I've done this with many young children. I've actually done this so many times with young children in comas. I come in and I say, my name is Sandra, and it looks like that you need a little bit of help. Would you like some help from me? And I can't tell you how many children I brought back out of comas. I just had to introduce myself and let them know that I was a safe person and did they want some help. But, I've definitely gone in on remote journeys and with a person in a coma who was, if she came back because of her accident, she was going to come back paralyzed. She said to me, please give me time to think about this because there are consequences if you do this healing work for me. So that's what you have to understand. There are consequences every time you do healing work for another person. And did they know that they were part of your, of what you were doing? And that they're going to have consequences because of it.
Yeah, and I've been in situations where I've been told no, and you can't second guess that no. You have to, oh well, no. Let me talk to another spirit. No, the answer was no. And the Swami that I worked with in my life, he'd say that every time you do a healing on somebody, it's a piece of their karma you're invited. You're actually engaging a piece of their karma, and so you really want to be mindful of that, in all of that, and it's a big responsibility to be a healer and to invoke that work. And the good news about healing is, just like they always say that God doesn't give you any more than a day than you can handle. They don't put you in healing situations that are out of your realm either. You just might have to grow into it a little bit. But I've always found that there was times that I did healings that I didn't understand what I was doing until 10 years later, but I wouldn't have been there if it hadn't been time and I wasn't told to be there. So you just have to really be really discerning and respectful and know that, that is you too. That is an aspect of yourself you are coming into contact with.
Yeah, and as Renee was saying, there's right timing for everything. There's right timing for everything. So we do have a show coming up on sacred contracts, and we're excited because as we begin this new year, we did the ceremony to let go, and hopefully you continued it because lifetimes don't get healed in a 5 or 10 minute ceremony. And this show, I cannot tell you how important it is right now. And I can tell you that Renee and I will be returning to this topic because it's a really big one right now for a lot of people who are caretaking others and who are really getting into trouble doing it. And sacred contracts. How do we break those sacred contracts? So if you see the theme, we're trying to help you with the new transformation that we're going through, getting a new start to your life. So please subscribe to the Shaman's Cave. We love doing the show together, and we love teaching. Renee and I were born to be teachers. That's part of our sacred contract.
Yeah, so that's what I don't want to break. So let's stay tuned and join us next week, and go over to shamanstv.com and sign up for our mailing list, and you'll never miss a show because it'll be in your inbox weekly. So thank you, and we'll see you next week.